All right, so we're gonna start our third lesson for Intro to Python. It's functions. Why is it not letting me control this? This is okay. So what is a function? A function is a self-contained module of code that accomplishes a specific task. So basically they let the same code be called in other parts of the code over and over again. So meaning you don't have to rewrite things over and over again. Generally speaking, they accept an input and return some sort of value. So we're going to look into the anatomy of a Python function. So you might recognize print. Print is a function. So generally speaking, a function will have a name. So in this case, we have print and max. Then we have open bracket and a close bracket. And within those brackets, we put our arguments. So you might notice that on the right, some functions can accept multiple arguments and some can accept none. And each argument is separated by a comma. So again, arguments are the input we pass through a called function. And these arguments are used within functions like variables. A function can accept 0 to multiple arguments depending on how it was defined, and we'll explain defining custom functions later in the lesson. You may also notice that sometimes the term parameter is used in or interchangeably with argument. There's a slight difference between the two, but which will become more evident in the lesson. But for the most part, if you use parameter argument, no one cares. So you can use them interchangeably.
Okay, so before we go any further, I just want to introduce you to a cool feature of Replit, which is an interactive window. So it's really useful for testing like small code and whatnot. So you can just execute code directly into the console by typing it in and pressing run. So let me show you some examples here. Okay. So let's say like I equals 5 and oh wait, oops, ignore that. Wait.
Python. I equals 0.
Oh yeah, okay, so I just got here. I'm gonna introduce you to the interactive window. So say print I, so you print 0, and you can also do stuff like if I is less than 5. And boom. So yeah, you can also do loops and stuff like that if you use right indentation.
Again, as you saw before, if you write an incorrect line, it will error.
Yes, that was just a demonstration of the error in Replit. Yes. So built-in functions are there functions that are part of the programming language, and Python has several, and there's a full list here, but here's some commonly used ones. So print, you already seen before, it outputs something to the console. Length returns the length of a string. So like here, bra has 4 letters, so it would output 4. And min returns the smallest number of the arguments here. And then max returns the largest number. So you can try that out in the interactions windows.
Yeah, how about we give you guys a few minutes, and then when you're done, just either raise your hand or do yes. In that case, let's also introduce the next slide because it has some more functions related to interaction windows.
Okay, fine. So if you notice, built-in functions can accept different number and types of arguments. And there's a docs here if you need a refresher on that. So try putting those same built-in functions into the interactive window and try putting different arguments in it. So, and see what happens.
So we have some examples at the bottom for you guys to try out. I guess if someone wants to, they can put in the chat what happens for each of the examples.
So for example, like length of A and B. Does anybody want to put in the chat what they think what that prints out? So if I type length of A, B, print out.
Reread the error message.
See, since length only takes exactly one argument and two are given, it gives out an error.
Yep. You guys are right about that.
And then for these, they can accept more than one argument. But if there's no arguments, there'll be an error. So
yep.
Expected in one argument, got 0. All right, let's move on, I guess. So I will paste this into the chat.
Yeah, I got it actually. I'll do it.
Okay. So yeah, just scroll down and do these 2 exercises here. Yeah, this and this. So we'll give you a moment to try those out. Okay. So in order to drive along the route, your truck needs to drive over limit A, limit B, and C, and it needs to be less than A, B, and C. So what is the maximum weight that can be transported along these roads? So basically the greatest amount would be the smallest of these limits, right? So using our trusty min method, we can put A, B, and C there, and boom. All right. Does everyone understand that? Okay.
I'm going to take that as a yes.
Yeah. So yeah.
Silence says, yes, you understand.
Okay. So question 2. Has everyone already done this, or do you need time to do this?
Still doing it. How about we give them 1 more minute? All right, are you guys done or? All right, let's take it up then.
Okay. So in this one, it's basically the same thing, except there's 2 routes this time, and you take either one. So basically, you take the one with the greatest limits. So first using our knowledge from the past one, first we get the minimum limit of the first route, which is A, B, and C. And then for the second one as well, which is D and E. So now you have to decide which one to go on. So obviously you go on the one with the greatest limit, because then now print out the max of route 1 and route 2.
We'll take a second for people to see the solution. It says in the program it has to be A instead of A. What do you mean by that? says A is not a defined name. I'm not sure what you mean by that. What's happening? Because we're calling variable A here and it's fine.
Are you coding yours in CS circles or in REPL?
Because on here, it like predefines them for you.
Yeah. Perhaps. You're doing straight up on the, like on CS circles, right? Or if it's just bugging for you, but here's a solution, it does work. I think we can move on. It's not working for you either.
Are you guys on the right question?
Yeah.
Like questions that look the same or something? It'll be part 2, right?
Going exercise 2 roads, this one.
But A is defined in the first question. Huh.
I mean, I guess maybe like after the meeting, they can like, you guys can troubleshoot it individually.
Yeah, I think we should move on.
Okie dokie.
All right, so now that we learned about built-in functions, what if we want to create our own functions? Because, you know, there's not that many good built-in functions. Well, we can. And this is how you do it. So first, you want to write def. And basically, def is a keyword that tells your Python that you want to define a function. After that, you want to put the function name. So on our example on the right, we have def my function, which is the function name. And function names, generally speaking, they're the same as variables. They can only be defined with alphanumeric and underscore characters. So my function is a valid one. Again, you probably want them to be descriptive. After that, we put 2 brackets, open bracket, close bracket, and then colon. Now, if you remember from control structures, when we're doing the loops, when we have a colon, when we put code underneath, we need to indent. So it's the same for functions. We need to indent each line of code for it to be part of the function. So in this case, our example on the right, we have indent return function executed, which is the code we want to run. Afterwards, we can call our function. And to call our function, it's the same. Just call my function name and then open bracket, close bracket. So it's the same as print, max, min, but just with your custom function name. Right now, our function doesn't accept any parameters, and it's just executing code that doesn't need an argument. You might also notice that our function returns a value, and it will return the value of function executed. And right on the next slide, we'll talk about what return is. So if we want our function to return a value, we use a return statement. So again, it's just return and then your value. Then we can perform some sort of action when we call the function. So in this case, favorite number, when we do print favorite number, it will print 69. So a way to think of it is that the function favorite number takes on the value of 69. You can also assign this value to a variable. So if we do num equals favorite number, we call favorite number, it returns the number 69. So number equals 69. And if we print num, it will print out 69. The moment the code reaches a return statement, it will exit out of the function and will not run any of the code after it. So if we look on the example on the right, temperature sensor, we'll say that temp is predefined as 20. So when we call the function temperature sensor, if temp is, we run each if statement. So if temp is less than 10, which is not true, so we go to the next. If temp is greater than 25, not true, so we go to the next, and it will return warm. It is warm. But because we've reached the return statement, it will not execute any of the code after it. So it will never print this statement. Does that make sense? Does anyone need me to repeat it? So essentially what I'm saying is once you reach this return statement, it will never ever run any code after it. Okay, if no one's gonna say anything, I'm gonna move on to the next concept. So the return statement is actually not mandatory in functions. If you don't have one, it will just execute each line of code. Technically, a function will always return a value, but it will return none if it doesn't reach any return statement within the function. So for now, you can think none just means no value. So if we look on our example on the right, temperature sensor 2, DEF is a keyword. And when you write DEF, you're telling Python, I want to define a function. So it's just telling Python that you want to create a custom function. If you don't have the keyword and you just do temperature sensor, it will think that you're calling a function and be like, wait, this function doesn't exist. So you want to use that keyword if you want to define a function. Anyways, in temperature sensor 2, because there's no return statement, it will always return none. And because there's no return statement to exit the statement, it will run each code or each line of code. So it will check if temp is less than 10, not true, okay. Is temp greater than 25, not true, okay. Then it will print it is warm, and it will also print I will always print because no return statement exited out of the function.
Okay, so here's just a quick table of the difference between return and print. So return is a keyword, while print is a function in and of itself. And return is only used in a function in order to return something, but print you can use in a function and outside of a function. You can pretty much use it anywhere. So return returns a value from one part of a code to another, and that can be assigned to a variable. But this just shows a value to the user through the console. And when return runs in a function, it stops the function and exits it, so nothing after it will. But if it runs print, then it doesn't affect the code, and it'll just keep on executing. It'll keep running the rest of the function. So, everyone get that?
Yep. We'll be showing some examples, so it becomes a lot more clear the difference between return and print.
Okay.
We don't have any questions. Yeah, let's continue. So,
Okay,
oh yeah, sorry.
So in each of these, so which line in this function will stop the function? So maybe like type in the chat if you know the answer.
So for the first function, print and return, what line will the function execute / stop? Okay, what about the second one? All right.
Yeah. All right, you got it. Yes, you see, and this one will run all lines, so it'll stop on the very last line, which is 4. So now try and guess which one it'll return and what it'll print. For the first one, wait, it already says up top, but okay, whatever. Okay.
Okay, but like, what does it like print out? Like the exact values it prints out. Yes, and what will it return? Are you sure about that for the first one?
Like what will return for the first function?
Yes.
Nothing.
Okay, Stefan says nothing. Anyone else? Okay. How about we click? I believe it should show the answer for the first function. All right. So I think someone said it, the function will loop from 1 to 9 and print 3, 6, 9. And as we said before, if there's no return statement, the return value is none or nothing.
All right, for the second function, what will it print?
So any other guesses? So we're talking about the second function. All right, if there's no more guesses, what will the function return? Any guesses for what the function will return? It'll return I, but what is the value of I? Okay, Vanessa says 3. Anyone else? 3. Okay, it seems like everyone is saying 3. All right, let's show the answer. So the function will print nothing because we've never called the print statement. But once the function reaches I equals 3, it will exit the function and return the value 3. Because as we established before, once you reach a return statement, it will stop the execution of the code and just return one value. So once it reaches 3, it will only return 3 and it will break out of the loop. Does that make sense? Or does anyone need us to repeat that again?
Sure, should I go over Python tutor?
Sure.
Yeah.
I'll also put the link in the chat if you guys want to follow along. So
yeah,
essentially this website lets you visualize each step of the code.
So for example, so for example, I just write a quick thing here, and then so then basically you can step through each process. So first it calls this, and then and look at that, it found an error. So that's another thing it does. So basically just it can really help you visualize what's going on each step.
Yes.
So yeah, so you can use that on our code examples if you're having trouble understanding them.
Yes. So we'll loop through and show you what it means. Do we want to spend a moment on that, or is everyone good? I'm gonna take silence as good, so please speak up if you're confused. All right, we don't have anyone. All right, so we'll move on to the next concept. So again, we've learned how to define basic functions, but what if we want our function to accept an input? So as we previously established, we can do that through parameters and arguments. So parameters are specified after the function inside the brackets, and you can put as many as you want, but make sure you separate each one with a comma. Again, parameters, they follow the same format as variable names, so alphanumerical an underscore value or characters. Yeah, so those are parameters. So if we look on the example on the right, it takes 2 parameters and returns their sum. So num1 and num2 are the parameters as they're specified while declaring a function. So when you call the function, you can pass these arguments, pass in arguments that will be assigned to each parameter. So they're placed between the brackets, separated by commas, again, like here. So the next 2 points are very important. Each argument must correspond to a parameter in the same order, and the number of arguments must match the number of parameters. If you don't follow this, it will error. like we saw before when we tried to pass 2 arguments through len. So in this case, we can only pass 2 arguments through add. So calling add with 1 and 2 as the arguments, num1 will be assigned. So the parameter num1 will be assigned with the argument 1, and then parameter num2 will be assigned with the argument 2. So thus it will return 1 plus 2. An easier way to think of the difference between arguments and parameters are that parameters are like variable names, and arguments are the values you want to assign to those variables. So here's another example so we can visualize what's going on. So we have a function called full name, and it takes first name, last name. So when we call it, we give it 2 arguments, in this case, Eddie, Zhuang, and we put it through. So first name will equal Eddie and last name will equal Zhuang. And then we print out the first name and the last name, and it prints out. I think that's pretty clear. All right. And one of the final things is that, as we established before, we can use the interactive window. Sometimes using print can be annoying to test what our function returns. So we can also call user-created functions from the interactive window. And essentially, it will run the function and output the return value of the function. So going back to our temperature example, now that we know what parameters are, we can have our parameter temp, and we can run the function, and then we can call it from the interactive window. And you see it outputs its return value. Do we want them to test that out, or should we show them in REPL.it?
Yes, we can show them.
Yeah.
Can you like click on other tabs from?
Can I? I mean, oh my God, I can. Wait, that's actually kind of cool. It's like really small though. I kind of, okay, wait. I don't know if I should like, can I copy paste the example? Oh, we're okay, we're like screen sharing, that doesn't really work. I like can't see it.
You can just like increase the font size.
I'm not sure how to do that. Does anyone know how to do that?
I can take control of it.
Thank you.
So size large.
All right, that's much better. So we have temp greater than, or we said less than. I should probably follow what that function said. We want to return, sorry. We want to return it is cold if temp is greater than 25. We want to return it is hot, or just that. And then otherwise, it is warm. So we can then call temperature sensor, give it a value, 20, and it will return it is warm. Just as a note of caution, every time you write code here, I recommend pressing run. So it basically updates the interactive window and tells the interactive window that this function exists. All right, I think that's pretty clear. If anyone doesn't have any questions, we'll move on. All right.
Okay, so a quick recap. To create a function, you can have 0 or multiple parameters. See here. To call a function, you just put the function name, parentheses, opening parentheses, your arguments, and then closing parentheses. Return statement. It allows the function to return a value, and then you can store it in a variable or output it. And the whole reason we use functions is they let us reuse important parts of code quickly and efficiently. So you don't have to like write everything over and over again. Okay, so we have some exercises here on coding batch. You can please enter. So you don't need to make an account. You can do it in Replit and then just paste it into the coding bat and to test it out. So,
I've posted the link in chat so you guys can open it up. So it's under logic 1 and logic 2, and those are the 4 problems.
Logic 2.
Yeah. Also write the problems. So we got cigar party, date fashion, I think it is. So those are the logic 1 problems. And for logic 2, it's make bricks and lonesome, is it? Yep. I mean, if they're stuck on it, maybe we should like give them an example solution. Okay, yeah. So.
Okay, so for the first problem, so first it checks if cigars is greater than or equal to 40, less than 60. Then here's the weekend. Then yeah, should be yes.
Are you calling the function? Because it sounds like you're calling the function. Yes, you can do that. You can write it in a 1-line statement if you know how to do that. For sure. It's just that we want to also implement control structures since we taught that last lesson. For the maximum recursion, that are you calling a function within a function? Are you calling cigar parties? Because you don't have to define the function. It's already been defined. You just need to add the body of the function, the code to be executed within the function. Recursion is a concept that's a little more advanced for intro to Python. Does anyone need us to explain each function? I think the comments are pretty clear, but we can like articulate through it if we need to. Brunei, you're failing 2 cases. Well, remember, if it's a weekend, it has to be greater than 40. So if weekend, so for is weekend equals true, you also have to check if cigars are also greater than 40, right? I mean, I guess both cases, no, yeah, because you're using an or statement, so that wouldn't work. As for, don't we have to do is weekend equals true? You can do that, but you can also just do is weekend, because is weekend equals true. So both work. For hashtag, hashtag is a comment. It's a 1-line comment. Do we need more time, or should we show them like straight in coding bats? Like,
does anybody want to like see it demonstrated in coding that?
yeah, maybe I could like copy the code and paste it into the chat for you guys to use or test yourself. If we don't have any more questions, maybe we could move on. Any last minute questions or concerns? Because we do have one more part of the lesson to teach. I'm seeing silence, so I think we can move on. All right, so the last concept we'll be teaching is scope. So essentially, variables only exist in certain parts of the code, and this is called scope. So we'll be mainly going through global and local scope. So global and local. So global variables are variables that are declared outside of a function, and they are accessible in any part of the code, including within functions. So if we look at this example on the right, we have x, and it's a global variable because it's declared outside of the function. So we can call it anywhere from the function or outside of the function. So in this case, we call it from hello, print x, and it prints out global. Local variables are variables that are declared inside a function's body, and local variables only exist within the function they're declared in. So if we we have our function sup, and we define a local variable called x, and if we print x, it will print local when we call sup. But what happens if you call print x on the line on line 6? In that case, it will error because x does not exist globally. So if you guys want to try that out, you can try that out. Maybe give you 30 seconds to get the code down.
Right now.
All right. Go into the next example. We'll show more examples of the erroring. So if we want to reinitialize or edit a global variable inside of a function, we have to use the global keyword. So global x, we're essentially telling Python, hey, so I want to edit x, but I want to edit the x that exists globally. So if we do x equals local and print x, when we call foo, it will print out local. But then if we call global x again, or if we just call x, because we established global x here, it will also print out local because we've edited it within the function foo. But what happens if you forget the global keyword? Well, then we have global versus local. So when a global variable and a local variable share the same name, the local variable will take precedence. So again, in this example, we have x equals global, and within sup, x equals local. So we call, when we print x, it will print global, but then when we call sup, it will print local. But if we call print x again, it will return global. So essentially, the x within here is a unique variable that only exists within this function. Whereas outside of that, it's untouched. Sup and foo are just function names. So they're just placeholder function names. Again, you should probably not name your functions that for the most part. You want to be clear, but these are just examples. All right. So let's guess the output. So these questions will tie in functions and scope together. So you want to guess what it will print out, not what it will return, but what will be outputted to the console. So if we look at the first function, and we call my function, what will be printed out to the console? So I guess write your answers in the chat. What do you think will be printed out? Okay, we're getting, yep. Anyone else? You guys are correct. So 69,000 will print out. What about the second example? What will be printed out to the console? This is a little trickier because you have to follow through. Any guesses? Okay, we've got any other? Okay, we have 8. Do we need to wait a little more or? Okay, I'm gonna reveal the answer now. And the answer is 8, so you guys are correct. He said 8. I don't know if this is too hard to see, but what about the third one? Do we need to zoom in? Can you guys see it? Okay, I mean, no one's saying they can't see it. So what will the third one output to the console? Okay, goodbye. We have one guess. Anyone else? Okay. Can you, okay, well, I'll reveal the answer and I'll explain why. It outputs nothing because we don't use a print statement at all. We only do return. And remember, return doesn't output anything to the console.
Oh, trick.
Is it too small? You guys can see it, right? Yeah, okay. Does that make sense? So nothing is outputted because we never call print. All right. And the last one, what will happen? So this one has something to do with scope. Any answers? $21? Well, the answer is error because as we established before, value only exists within my function. So if we try to call it outside, it will error because it'll be like, wait a minute, value doesn't exist. Does that make sense? Okay, well, we're not having any people against this. Oh, wait, so value x is, so value is x in when? Pardon? What do you mean by that? Yes, value does equal x, but it only equals x within this function. Outside of the function, it does not exist. Okay, so this will be our final project. We only have like 10 minutes left. So hopefully we can get through it quickly. How would you introduce it, Eddie?
So basically you have to write a function. So make sure you write a function or yeah. So basically it takes in a number and it returns true if the number is prime and it returns false if the number isn't prime. So just a reminder, if you didn't know, a prime number is a number greater than 1 that can only be divided evenly by 1 and itself. So like 10 is not prime because it can be divided by 2, but 11 can only be divided by 1 and 11, so it's prime. So just a hint, remember modulo returns the remainder of a division. So if A divided by B and the remainder is 0, then A is divided evenly by B. So right here you have a prime strong stake because it's a prime detector. So
Or I think we'll give the rest of the time like 5 minutes because the breakout room is going to end soon. The end of the intro to Python meeting. We'll post the slides later tonight on Google Classroom. Right. Goodbye.